Buckingham Palace was expecting many things this year, but what exploded onto the internet in February 2026 left even seasoned royal watchers stunned. A leaking photograph, a simple signature, and suddenly the entire monarchy was dragged back into a controversy everyone thought had been settled years ago. Because the moment those images surfaced, one question began echoing across Britain and beyond: why was Meghan Markle signing books as French Meghan when the title had been removed 6 years earlier? And when that question reached the ears of one royal who rarely tolerates nonsense, the reaction was swift, direct, and unusually sharp. Princess Anne had finally spoken, and when she did, it felt less like a polite correction and more like a royal warning shot fired straight across the Atlantic. The story did not begin with a press conference. It did not begin with a royal announcement. It began quietly, almost casually, with a handful of Instagram stories posted by celebrity friends in mid-February. The post showed copies of a new novel called Royal Spin, written by Omid Scobie. At first glance, the images looked harmless: a new book, a supportive message, a friendly gift. But when viewers zoomed in on the page, something strange appeared. An inscription written in elegant handwriting: "Love this story of resilience." And underneath it, the signature that would ignite an international firestorm: Her, Meghan. Within hours, screenshots were circulating everywhere. Royal watchers noticed it immediately. Comment sections filled with confusion. Had something changed? Had the Sussex titles quietly been restored? Or was this something else entirely? Because everyone remembered the same thing. In 2020, when Prince Harry and Meghan stepped back from royal duties, the agreement was clear. They would retain the titles of Duke and Duchess of Sussex, but the style church would no longer be used in any official or commercial capacity. That line had been drawn publicly and repeatedly. Yet here it was again, written clearly in black ink inside a brand new book. At first, the palace remained silent. Inside Buckingham Palace, staff members began quietly reviewing the images. Media monitoring teams flagged the screenshots as they spread across social media platforms. What had started as a small curiosity was quickly transforming into a growing controversy. And the more people talked about it, the more the context began to look suspicious. Because the book itself was already struggling. Royal Spin, Omid Scobie's first attempt at fiction, had launched earlier in February with big expectations. The story followed an American woman who leaves Washington politics to work inside Buckingham Palace, a plot that many readers immediately recognized as a fictionalized mirror of Meghan's own journey. Critics were not impressed. Reviews were harsh. Sales numbers were worse. By early March, the novel had failed to appear on major bestseller lists, and its rankings on major online retailers were sinking fast. Then suddenly, these signed copies appeared, each one featuring the same controversial signature. To some observers, it looked like an innocent show of support for a friend. To others, it looked like something much more calculated, an attempt to attach royal prestige to a project that was already collapsing. And the internet reacted instantly. Hashtags began appearing across social media platforms. TikTok creators dissected the signatures frame by frame. Twitter threads compared the inscription to official royal protocol documents. Within days, the phrase "Meghan fake werch" was trending across the United Kingdom. Millions of posts flooded the conversation, many accusing Meghan of deliberately blurring the line between her private ventures and the royal institution she had left behind. Inside palace walls, patience was wearing thin. For weeks, the royal family had avoided publicly addressing Sussex controversies. The strategy had been silence, a method often summarized by the phrase "never complain, never explain." But this situation felt different. The title HRH was not just a decorative label. It was part of the monarchy's constitutional identity. Allowing it to appear on a commercial product could create confusion about royal endorsement. And that was when Princess Anne entered the story. Unlike many other members of the royal family, Anne has built a reputation for bluntness. She rarely comments on Sussex matters. In fact, she had largely stayed silent throughout years of drama surrounding Harry and Meghan. But sources inside the palace say that when she saw the images of the signed books, her reaction was immediate. The action, she reportedly argued, risked dragging the monarchy into a commercial promotion it had nothing to do with. For days, discussions unfolded behind closed doors. Advisors debated how to respond. Some believed the palace should ignore the situation and allow it to fade. Others warned that silence might be interpreted as acceptance. Finally, on the morning of March 5th, the decision was made. At 7:30 a.m. GMT, an official statement was released through palace channels, and it carried a tone rarely heard in royal communications. The message was direct, unmistakable, unshakable and carried the authority of one of the monarchy's most respected working royals. The use of a royal title without permission, the statement explained, violated the 2020 agreement. Meghan Markle no longer held the right to use words. The action did not represent the royal family in any way, and most striking of all, the palace expected an immediate public correction. For royal watchers, the language felt extraordinary. Princess Anne had effectively stepped forward as the monarchy's enforcer, drawing a clear line in the sand. The media erupted. British newspapers ran headlines within minutes. Television networks replayed the statement again and again throughout the day. Commentators analyzed the unusual nature of Anne's intervention. She was known for discipline, loyalty to the institution, and absolute intolerance for anything that threatened its integrity. And suddenly, the conversation was no longer about a struggling novel. It was about protocol, power, and whether the Sussex brand had once again collided with the rules of the monarchy. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, Meghan remained silent. Hours passed. The internet grew louder. Critics demanded an apology. Supporters argued the reaction was exaggerated. Then late that evening, a new development appeared, an Instagram story posted briefly to Meghan's account. The image showed her holding the novel, smiling, with the caption praising stories about strong women. But there was one detail missing. No mention of the signature, no explanation about the title, and no acknowledgement of Princess Anne's demand. 30 minutes later, the story vanished. Screenshots had already spread everywhere. By the end of the day, millions of people had seen the controversy unfold in real time. Social media debates intensified. Royal commentators dissected every detail. Meanwhile, Omid Scobie, the author whose book had triggered the storm, remained almost completely silent, posting only minimal promotional content while the world argued about the scandal surrounding his novel. Inside Buckingham Palace, the message remained clear: the institution would not allow royal titles to be used casually in private branding. But outside the palace, another question was growing louder by the hour. Was this simply a careless signature or something far more deliberate? Because to critics, the timing felt too perfect. A struggling book, a royal-inspired storyline, a famous signature that instantly guaranteed global attention. And if that suspicion proved true, then the controversy surrounding royal spin was no accident at all. It was the spark that triggered a full-scale royal confrontation, one that Princess Anne had decided finally to shut down. The palace statement landed like a thunderclap across the royal landscape, and suddenly the entire controversy shifted from quiet internet chatter to a full-blown institutional confrontation. For nearly 2 weeks, the palace had watched the story simmer in the background, hoping it might disappear on its own. Instead, it had grown louder, sharper, and far more uncomfortable. By the time Princess Anne's words were released publicly, the palace clearly believed the situation had crossed a line that could no longer be ignored. The message carried a tone that royal observers rarely hear from Buckingham Palace. There was no polite ambiguity, no careful diplomatic phrasing. It was simple and unmistakable. Meghan Markle no longer had the right to use the style and the royal family expected that misuse to be corrected immediately. Within minutes of the statement appearing online, every major news outlet in Britain picked it up. Headlines exploded across television screens and news websites. Commentators began dissecting the extraordinary nature of the intervention. Princess Anne is not known for theatrical gestures or public scolding. She is known for discipline, consistency, and an almost military respect for protocol. When someone like her steps forward publicly, royal watchers know it means patience inside the palace has run out. Behind palace doors, the reaction had been building quietly for days. Media monitoring teams first noticed the Instagram screenshots on February 19th. At that moment, the situation seemed small, just a few celebrity posts featuring signed books. But the images kept resurfacing. Each repost brought a fresh wave of criticism. By February 21st, a briefing summary had already circulated among senior members of the royal household. The key concern was not the book itself, it was the signature, because the letters HRH carry constitutional meaning. They signify a direct connection to the monarchy's authority and represent a role within the institution. Allowing those letters to appear casually on commercial products risks creating confusion about royal endorsement. Sources later revealed that Princess Anne expressed immediate concern when she reviewed the report during a private meeting at St. James's Palace. According to insiders, she viewed the signature not as an innocent mistake, but as a deliberate provocation, a move that blurred the boundary between private celebrity branding and royal identity. To end, that line had to remain absolute. If it disappeared, the monarchy's authority would slowly erode into a marketing label anyone could use. As discussions continued behind closed doors, palace advisors debated possible responses. Some believed the controversy would burn out on its own. Others warned that silence might encourage further misuse of royal titles in future commercial ventures. The longer the debate lasted, the more social media outrage intensified outside the palace gates. Hashtags criticizing Meghan's signature surged across the United Kingdom. TikTok creators turned the screenshots into viral videos. Comment sections filled with arguments about whether the Sussex brand was still attempting to leverage royal connections. By early March, the situation had grown impossible to ignore. Inside Buckingham Palace, officials continued monitoring the situation carefully. The palace confirmed that further clarification could be issued if the matter remained unresolved. Legal experts began discussing the broader implications of repeated title misuse. While the monarchy has limited authority over private activities in the United States, continued controversies could influence future decisions about protocol, security arrangements, and the boundaries between royal identity and commercial ventures. For many royal watchers, the incident symbolized a deeper tension that has followed the Sussex story since 2020. Harry and Meghan stepped away from royal duties seeking independence, yet their global identity remains inseparable from the institution they left behind. Every documentary, podcast, or public appearance inevitably circles back to that connection. And each time it does, the palace must decide whether to respond or remain silent. This time, silence ended the moment Princess Anne stepped forward. Her intervention signaled something unmistakable. The monarchy was no longer willing to ignore repeated references to titles that had been formally set aside. The 2020 agreement was not merely symbolic. It was a boundary, and Anne had just reminded the world that boundaries still exist. As the days passed without an official correction, the controversy continued spreading through global media. Newspapers debated whether the Sussex brand was losing momentum. Commentators argued about whether the royal family should take stronger steps to enforce protocol. And in the middle of it all sat the original image that had started everything: a simple handwritten inscription inside a book, just a few letters, 4 characters written in ink. Those 3 letters had triggered headlines, sparked global debates, shaken a struggling book launch, and pushed one of the monarchy's most respected figures to intervene publicly. And the biggest question remained hanging in the air like unfinished business. Would Meghan Markle correct the signature, or would this clash with Princess Anne mark the beginning of an even deeper royal standoff?